Hello, everyone. Welcome to Small Talk. Well, today's guest is she's a board member at the Literary Arts Windsor. She also works at do you pronounce it MAID?
Made, yeah.
MAID, collaborative writing entity. From where are you? She's not in Antarctica, which is
Windsor, Ontario.
makes sense since you're part of the literary arts. Anyway, thank you so much for being here. I'm a little flustered because I'm a day behind or whatever.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Anyways, Wallace, everybody, you're very welcome. Thanks for your
Oh,
patience.
well,
Right.
thank you.
So tell me about the Literary Arts in Windsor. What
The organization or in general?
just in the organization to begin with, please.
Sure. Yeah. Literary Arts Windsor. It's a local board of directors basically that oversees the nonprofit that runs Book Fest Windsor, which is an annual literary festival that happens here. It's actually happening well, depending on when you view this, it's happening next weekend, which would be the October 18th and 19th.
Right.
Um, And yeah, we basically get authors from across the country on different panels talking about their books or their field of writing. So we've got a bunch of different panels this year. And yeah, the board basically just kind of oversees the governance of the nonprofit essentially. And then there's a separate planning committee that deals with the actual scheduling of authors and things like that.
Okay. Yeah, this will air in time for that event.
Oh,
Um,
great.
so is this open to the public? Like, how does it all work?
Yes, it is open to the public. Bookfest Windsor has its own website and social media, so you can definitely check them out and get more information. And there's a schedule of events, and it's sort of a one fee thing, and you can attend all of the events that are happening over a 2 day period. So that's quite a few panels to attend.
How did you get involved?
Just being a local writer, they were like, "We need board members. Please be a board member." And I was like, "Okay, sure." Um, I do like to volunteer for various literary things, but also other things. I was previously the reviews editor for Carousel and an editorial member of Carousel. I've also volunteered for a long time, actually, for a collective called Draft Reading Series that runs draft reading series in Toronto, Ontario, when I lived there. I think it's good to try to give back to the community a little bit by volunteering your time for, artistic pursuits.
For sure, I
Um,
agree. Yeah.
yeah.
So what is MAD?
Oh, Made.
Yes.
Yes, Made. We call it a collaborative writing entity, but basically it's my partner and I. So that's Mark Liberty. He is an artist, a designer, a writer. He does all kinds of things related to literature. And we started collaborating in 2018 on first poetry and then sort of more art poetry hybrid type work. Now we're trying our hand at fiction writing. We have our first book coming out in this coming February 2025 from Palimpsest Press. The book is called Zoo. That's ZZOO. And it's sort of more traditional, like lyric poetry, but authored by the two of us collectively. So we're really looking forward to that. And we have some more things planned for the future.
Right. Now, for yourself, have you written poetry before?
Yes, lots. Since I was a child, basically. My first official book of poetry came out last year with Guernica Editions. That was called Love is a Place, but You Cannot Live There. And I have another just book that I wrote, not with Made, coming out in 2026, also from Guernica Editions, which will be called The Work is Done When We Are Dead. And I do tend to think of myself more as a poet than a fiction writer. I mean, my latest book is a novel, but poetry is sort of where my heart lives, so to speak.
Yeah.
And yeah, got lots of things going.
So are you a person that has notes everywhere? Like you think of something, you jot it down, or you're somebody that's focused on something and say, okay, today I'm
Yeah, somewhat. I used to write everything down, and I would, I remember being in high school and I would get bored in class and I would write like 5 poems a day. And um, it was definitely kind of a mode of being.
right.
I find now, because I don't have as much time on my hands, I tend to be a little bit more picky about what I really focus my mental energy on in
Right.
terms of writing, also in terms of other things. But so my approach now is basically like I I think about it for a bit. If I can remember it a few days later, I might actually write it down and start working on it. If
Right.
it doesn't stick, I'm like, it wasn't meant to stick. I got to move on to the next thing. Um, it's just a kind of litmus test I use for my ideas now. If they have staying power, I'll work on them. If they don't have staying power, they can go. I don't have time for them.
Right. Yeah. No, I know with poetry, there's like different rhyme schemes. There's a type of poetry that doesn't rhyme. Do
Mhm.
you have a preference?
I'd say I do mostly write free verse, which is very typical, I suppose, of my generation. We write a lot of free verse poetry. I like to think of rhyme as like kind of one of the tools in a writer's arsenal that, they can draw on at times. It's not like I have never written rhyming poetry, but I tend to be quite selective about when I use it. I want to use it very purposefully because I think if you're not extremely intentional about the way you use it, it has a tendency to sound kind of old fashioned a bit, for better or worse. And so when I'm using it, I'm writing it with sort of an awareness of like what it sounds like and what its potential is for different types of effect on the reader.
Right. Okay. What about, have you ever attended any poetry? Is it called slam? I think it's called, right?
Yeah, I used to live in St. Catharines, Ontario, and I used to go to the St. Catharines poetry slams quite regularly. Um, it is definitely a scene that I appreciate, but is probably not my forte. I'm more of a page poet than a performance poet. I do like reading now and then, but yeah, I find I do my best work sort of on the page, quietly, alone. So I'm more of an appreciator of slam than someone who will probably ever actually be a slam poet myself.
All right. I forgot to ask, and I should have asked ahead of time. Do you have copies of your books that you can hold up?
Oh, yes, I do. I'd have to pull them out.
Okay, no worries. Yeah, because I think it's good that for people to actually see it, and then, it kind of
Yeah,
helps,
for sure.
right? Oh,
Um, Yes. Anyways, so this is my latest book, Anomia. That's the novel. It's kind of a missing persons novel, but overlaid with this literary conceit that there is no sex and gender referred to in the entire book. So none of the characters have a defined sex or gender. It's a little bit of a speculative novel. And then previously, my poetry book, Love is a Place, But You Cannot Live There, the one I mentioned earlier. This is what it looks like. Both of them, well, I think they're very nice covers. Personally, I might be a little biased, but they were designed by my partner, Mark Liberty, who also collaborates with me on Made. He's a longtime book and magazine designer. So
nice.
I'm very lucky to have someone kind of in-house to do the design.
Right.
And the publishers have been very good about letting us just kind of play with those on our own and then putting them out.
So, at what point did you decide to try to get your work published?
I would say probably got into publishing, so to speak. Must be around 14 years ago now when I was in university.
Right.
That was when I first started sort of meeting other people who submitted to literary magazines, who ran small chapbook presses,
Mm.
things like that. And that was where I got my start, was just uh, submitting to literary magazines, having chapbooks put out by publishers. I've had several chapbooks at this point, kind of leading up to having full-length collections.
Hmm.
Yeah, I still find chapbooks a very interesting medium, but not one I typically work in anymore. I find my ideas these days are a little bit more long form, and the chapbook doesn't give me enough space to play with a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But I love reading them.
Cool. Yeah. Okay. So now you said you worked on something with your partner, right?
Yes.
And
Yep.
that's what's coming out in next year.
Yep. Correct.
And where can you find your work? Is it like if you Google it, can you just come?
So yeah, there's actually a lot of places you can find it. So the publishers, Palimpsest Press and Guernica Editions, they have websites you can order through if you like.
Okay.
If you have a local bookstore, I love and will always want to support indie bookstores, of course. So if you have a local indie bookstore, you can go directly there. Or if you don't know who your local indie bookstore is, you can check out 49th Shelf, which has a website and will direct you to your local indie bookstore. And also the typical, Indigo, Amazon, things like that. They're available there. if you have contact with me or you find contact with me through my website, you can order signed copies from me directly as well. So basically, anywhere you buy books, you can get a book,
Okay.
one of my books specifically, if you want.
Right. No, I'm assuming you have a day job as well.
Yep, I do. It's quite well, it is and is not different from the writing work. It does heavily involve reading and writing, but it's much more technical. I do analysis of contracts essentially.
Okay.
I have a legal background. I'm not a lawyer, but I have a legal background. And so I'm currently working for a charity actually.
Okay. Because I think you would need a legal background, like that knowledge, right, to understand
It
contract.
does help. Yes, definitely.
Because I know as a layperson, when you're reading a contract, you sometimes you wonder what the heck does that mean?
Yes. Yeah. My previous two jobs actually were working in legal clinics where I used to actually be like a legal advocate and I'd give legal advice and things like that. In this role, I fortunately don't have to do that. So it's a little bit of a lower pressure scenario.
Right.
Um, but yeah, it's all been very rewarding work for someone who likes spending a lot of time parsing words, put it that way.
Right. Okay, so let's remind everybody of the event coming up with the Literary Arts program.
Yes, this coming Friday and Saturday, October 18th and 19th, in the sort of evening on Friday, and then most of the day Saturday, there are various panels, and you can check out Bookfest Windsor's website for details.
Okay, and the address for people who just want to, who don't want
It
to.
will be on Zoom, so very easy to get
Oh,
to no matter where you are, no excuses.
okay, very good. Yeah, very good. Okay, so I think we covered everything.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for talking to me today.
You're welcome. And again, I apologize for getting the days mixed up.
No worries at all.
And yeah, just stay on camera for a second. So, to the audience, you've been listening to Jade Wallace, and thank you for watching the show. I hope you continue to do so. Take care, everybody, and peace out. Oh, I gotta find the off button. I miss it every time.
I
Okay.
know. Me too.
So this, I'm gonna air this. Let's see. Let me just look at my calendar quickly. Um, oh, okay. I'm gonna air it. I'll air it Wednesday.
Perfect.
Oh yeah, and once it's aired, because I put it up in YouTube and all those other places, I'll send you the link. Okay.
Beautiful.
Right.
Okay,
And
I'll share it.
thanks again for being so understanding. I really appreciate
Oh, no. Thank you. I really appreciate your time.
it. Take care. Have a good day.
You
Or
too. Bye bye.
bye-bye.